Hello everyone, good morning and a very warm welcome to our webinar today all around shared parental pay in Sage 50 Payroll. My name's Duncan, I'm your host and presenter, and I am joined today by my colleague Ollie, who is standing by in the background, ready and waiting to answer your questions. Let's now take a look at what we're going to cover in the webinar. So we'll begin with an introduction to shared parental pay and shared parental leave, a little bit of background on the legislation and the qualifying conditions and how an employee would need to give you notice of their intention to take shared parental leave. We're then going to look at the process in Sage 50 Payroll. So how you set this up, and it will be linked to the original statutory payment the employee qualified for, and then how to process the shared parental pay and make any adjustments to the basic pay. We'll cover reclaiming shared parental pay, which works in exactly the same way as maternity, paternity, and adoption pay. And then at the end, I'll run through some further support that's available, including upcoming webinars, our Help Centre, and Sage University. So that is what we have in store for you. And we'll get straight on to our introduction to shared parental leave and pay. So two terms and abbreviations to get used to. SPL stands for shared parental leave, and this is an entitlement of up to 50 weeks, depending on when the mother or main adopter decides to curtail their maternity or adoption leave. Whereas SHPP stands for statutory shared parental pay, and that's a paid entitlement of up to 37 weeks. Now, this statutory leave and payment enables mothers or adoptions to end their maternity or adoption leave early and then share the remaining weeks' pay and leave with their partner. So it gives more flexibility. They can still use the shared leave themselves, but they would have more flexibility over when that leave is taken, and they can share that leave with their partner. Now, shared parental pay has replaced additional statutory paternity pay, which was an option for the partner to take extended leave if the mother ended the maternity early, but now it can be shared between both partners as well. And there's a good overview of this on the gov.uk website, so I have included a link to that there on the slide. Now, eligibility for shared parental pay is very much linked to the original statutory payment the employee would have received. So an employee would be entitled to SHPP if one of the following applies. So either they themselves are eligible for statutory maternity pay or adoption pay, and they intend to share the remaining pay with their partner, or they are eligible for statutory paternity pay and their partner is eligible for either statutory maternity pay, maternity allowance, or statutory adoption pay. Now, the rate of pay for shared parental pay is the standard rate, so it's £184.03 per week, or 90% of average weekly earnings, whichever is lower. And that's the rate that applies for the current tax year, 2024 to 25. So how does an employee get shared parental pay? What do they need to do? Well, the mother or main adopter must end their SMP or SAP and either return to work or give binding notice of the date that they'll do this. Both parents would need to give their employers at least 8 weeks written notice of their entitlement to the shared parental leave and pay, and they would need to inform their employer how they intend to share the leave and pay. And this can be done in multiple blocks if they choose to. Now, the best way for them to inform you of their intention to take this leave is to complete the form available on the ACAS website. So I have included a link to that, as you can see at the bottom on the slide there. And it'll take you to this website just here. So shared parental leave forms and templates for parents. And then depending on the circumstances, whether it's maternity, adoption, or surrogacy, they can then download the relevant forms to complete and then hand in to their employer. So it's a little bit more complicated than the forms used for maternity, which is the MAP B1 certificate, or paternity pay. You'll see they download it in Word format, and they would complete these forms depending on which of the parents will be taking the leave. But I will show you an example of a completed form a little bit later on. So once they've completed these forms, they would need to tell you how they intend to share the leave. And unlike maternity pay and adoption pay, which has to be taken in a continuous block, there is more flexibility, as each parent can take up to 3 separate blocks of leave. And this leave can be taken either at different times or even at the same time as the other parent, as long as it is taken within 1 year of the birth of the child. So to illustrate where the different options parents may have when they're taking shared parental leave, I've just got a bit of a graphic here. So traditionally, the mother or main adopter would take their 39 weeks of statutory maternity or adoption pay, and then the partner would have taken 2 weeks of statutory paternity pay. And previously that had to be taken continuously, but since the 6th of April, paternity pay can be taken as 2 separate 1-week blocks. Now, if the mother or main adopter decides to end their maternity or adoption early, the partner is then able to take some of the remaining weeks of leave and pay. So one thing they might choose to do, and this works in the same way as additional statutory paternity pay used to, is that the partner might take over immediately after the mother or adopter returns to work. So whatever number of weeks was remaining, they would take continuously from that date. But they've got choices now. They could decide to end the maternity leave after a few weeks and then share out the remaining weeks, taking some at the same time, and maybe the partner staying on to take a little bit longer. And then they do have the option of taking separate blocks of leave, and they could have gaps in between these blocks. They just need to give you 28 days notice of the start date of each block of leave, and that could be planned in at any point up to the baby's first birthday. So in the example on the slide there, you can see it's alternating between the partner, the mother, and maybe some periods where they're taking annual leave. So as I say, it is down to the employee to decide when they're going to take it. There are some tools on the gov.uk website as well to help them plan when they might want to take leave, but they would inform you by completing the relevant forms that they can download or you can provide from the ACAS website. So that's just a bit of the theory of shared parental leave and pay. What we're going to focus on for the rest of the webinar is actually processing the payment in Payroll. So let's first take a look at the steps of setting up shared parental pay in Sage 50 Payroll. So the way that you do this does slightly differ depending on whether it's for the mother or main adopter or the partner. So first thing you would need to do is to check that the original statutory payment details have been entered. And for the mother or adopter, you need to enter the return to work date. So that's the date after the maternity or adoption leave officially ends. So the date from which they can take the shared parental leave. And then for the partner, you would just check that the statutory paternity pay details have been entered in the record. What you can then do is you can enter the shared parental pay details. So you would tick a box to say you've received a signed declaration. You would confirm the number of weeks of leave available, the number of weeks that your employee has chosen to taken from that shared entitlement, and also some partner details. So that's their name and national insurance number. And then the third step is to record the dates of the absence. So remember, this can be up to 3 separate blocks. And this works in a very similar way to recording sickness absence on the absence diary. So let's take a look at this in action. Just going to bring the slides down at this point. And first thing I want to show you is a completed form for our first example. So this is the shared parental leave form that was downloaded from the ACAS website. On the first page, it tells you which of the 4 forms needs to be completed depending on the circumstances. So if both parents are taking shared parental leave, it's forms 1, 2, and 4, for example. But in this one that I'm going to show you, it is just the partner that wants to take the shared parental leave. So they need to complete forms 1, 3, and 4. So form 1 is the curtailment of maternity leave and pay for the birth parent's employer. So this is confirming that the maternity leave is being cut short. So in this case, they're taking 33 weeks of maternity leave, and they're informing their employer that that's what they're going to be doing. Form 2 isn't applicable to this scenario, but Form 3 is. So this again is for the birth parent's employer, just confirming that they will not be taking any of the shared parental leave or pay. And then the fourth form, so this will go to the partner's employer. It gives the details of the shared parental leave and pay that they will be taking. So it's got details of the original kind of due dates and the maternity leave, how many weeks were available to share. So in this case, 33 weeks of SMP were taken, 6 weeks will be shared. So 6 weeks is going to be taken by the partner. They've specified the dates that they want to take it. They're going to take it as a continuous block. And they've used the same details for both the leave and the pay in this example. So there's then some declarations to be signed. And once you have this form, that's all you really need from your employee. And then you can go ahead and enter the details in your program. So first thing I'm going to show you is setting up shared parental pay for a partner. So in this example, we only employ the partner. So the mother of the baby works for another employer. So I'm going to start by opening the employee record for the employee taking the leave. You would then go to the absence tab, and you would go into the option for the original statutory payment, which in this case was statutory paternity pay, SPP. And you can see the details. The employee originally took 2 weeks of SPP around the time of the baby's birth. What we then need to do, having checked that these details have been entered, is to click on shared parental pay, this option just here. We select the box to confirm we've received the declaration to take shared parental leave and pay. On that form, it was stated there were 6 weeks available, and the number of weeks taken by this employee is going to be the full 6 weeks. Now, I'm not going to fill in the number of weeks recorded because that will fill in automatically when we record the dates on the absence diary, but we do need to provide partner details. So we're going to pop in the partner name and, if known, the NI number. And then if you click on to OK, that has established the entitlement. We click OK again, which will save the paternity details. So now that the shared parental pay details have been entered, we need to enter the dates of absence. So while we're on the absence diary, we can use the diary entry option. And for the absence type, you would come down to Other, and you would choose Shared Parental. So this one here in the list, Other and Shared Parental. And then I'm going to enter the date range for the full 6 weeks. They're taking it as one block. So it's going to be between the 20th of May, and that's going to end on the 30th of June. Now you can add your own comment if you want to. I'm just going to leave that blank. And if I click OK, you can see it has then recorded the period of shared parental leave. And a bit like sick pay, the entries appear in lowercase before they've been actually paid and updated. And when that becomes historical absence, those entries will show in uppercase. So that is all set up for the first employee. And if we just take a quick look within Enter Payments and click onto the Summary tab, you can see that we do have an amount of shared parental pay. And if we click on the parental leave tab, just here we can see those same diary entries. We can see the number of weeks currently due. So that's the absence between the first day of leave and our current process date. So that's setting it up for a partner. I also want to show you how you would set it up for the mother or main adopter if they've chosen to end their maternity or adoption leave early and then use some of the shared parental pay themselves. So I have a different employee here, employee number 4. And again, we need to go into the employee record to set up any shared parental. You'd go to the absence tab, and the original statutory payment for this employee was SMP. So I'm going to click that at the bottom here. Now we can see all of the maternity details. So maternity leave started at the end of March. And this employee has decided to do 6 weeks of SMP, which is all going to be paid at the higher rate. Remember, there is a higher rate for SMP. And from that point, they're going to start sharing the leave with their partner. So first of all, you do need to make sure that the born on date has been entered, because all of this shared leave needs to be taken within 1 year of the date of birth. But we also need to enter the return to work date, even if they're not coming back to work immediately. If they're taking some of the shared leave, we're still going to put return to work for the purposes of ending SMP. And the date we're going to enter here is, we're going to say they returned on the 6th of May. And then you can see, I'll just flick between these tabs because it's not displaying properly, but you can see as soon as you enter return to work date, it is now established that there are 33 weeks of the paid leave remaining, and this is the total amount of statutory pay that would be available. So you can see as well, it's cut short the SMP to the 6 weeks that they intend to take. So to record the shared parental details, you would click on the shared parental pay button. Like before, you tick the box confirming you've received the declaration. Because this is the mother or main adopter, it already knows the total number of weeks available. But we need to say how many weeks that this parent intends to take. So for this one, they're going to be taking 13 weeks of those 33. Again, we don't enter the weeks recorded because we're going to record it on the absence diary, and then we would put in the partner details like so. So that has recorded the entitlement to shared parental pay. And just like before, we would enter the absence dates. So this employee has kept things pretty simple for us. They're going to take their shared leave between the 6th of May and the 4th of August. So that is the full 13-week period. So again, I'm going to use diary entry to record it. It was other, and then it was shared parental. Here it is. And it's going to be between the 6th of May, 4th of August. That has added the entries onto the diary. And I'll just mention, I forgot to show you this for the last employee, but if you go back in to the shared parental details, you'll see that the weeks recorded has updated based on those absence entries. So I can actually see there that I have recorded the full 13-week period. So that's on the absence diary. And when we go into enter payments, just have a quick check. We can see that shared parental pay is being calculated. And on the parental leave tab, it's the 3.714 weeks. So that is setting up the shared parental pay. Let's just recap those steps for you. So first thing we did is we checked the original statutory payment details. So for the mother or main adopter, it's making sure that the return to work date has been entered. So that's the day they would have returned to work if they weren't taking any shared leave. You also need to make sure that the date of birth is entered, so the born on date. And for the partner, make sure that statutory paternity pay or paternity pay adoption details have been entered. We then entered the shared parental pay details, so the declaration, weeks available and weeks being taken. So don't fill in the weeks recorded. That will fill in automatically when you put the diary entries in, but you do need the partner details. And then the absence, similar to the way you would record sick pay, it's diary entry, it's under the other category and it's shared parental, and you put the dates from and to, and that could be separate blocks. Remember, up to 3 separate blocks can be taken. So now that that's all set up, the statutory payment will calculate automatically. It follows the same rules as other statutory payments. It calculates up to your process date, so whatever day that might be. It won't pay anything in advance. So if your process date isn't the end of the period you usually pay wages for, the statutory payment might be a bit less than you'd expect to start with, but they will still receive the correct entitlement overall. And when it comes to processing, number 1, check that you've set the correct process date. Step 2 is to check the shared parental pay amount. So I'll remind you where that was. And then step 3, as with other statutory payments, is making adjustments to the basic pay where required. So let's take a look at that in the demo now. Just bringing the slides down. We'll start with the employee who was the partner taking shared parental pay this month. So I've already set my process date. My employees are paid on the last day of the month, the 31st of May. And when I go into enter payments, we can check the paternity pay amount, the parental pay amount, either on the parental leave tab. So we've got the amount payable, so it's 1.71 weeks, so just shy of 2 full weeks, up to the pay date. And we can see on the summary tab that total also appears under the shared parental pay category. And what you then need to do is your adjustments to the basic pay. So if you happen to have a company policy where the employee would receive their full pay during periods of shared parental leave, you could use the make up basic option to do the adjustment automatically. So you would enter the full amount you want the employee to receive, such as their usual salary. You go to the summary tab and you could click make up basic, and then click yes to adjust the basic pay. And you can see that's brought them back down to their usual gross salary amount. Or if you don't have a company policy, you need to work out how much they should be paid for the days or hours they've worked, and then you would adjust the basic pay manually. So an example of how you might go about doing that. So for this particular employee, I've looked at the number of working days in the month of May that I would usually pay them for. So they'd be paid for 23 working days in May, but I know that they only worked 13 of those 23 days. So if I was manually adjusting the salary, one way I could do it is I could amend the hours value, just open that little calculator. I could do 13 divided by 23. And you can see that that is one way of reducing the salary amount. So this represents what I want to pay them for the days they've worked. And then in addition to that, they will get their shared parental pay. Quick look at the other employee. So remember, this employee has just finished their first 6 weeks of maternity pay. They got that at the higher rate. So they've still got some remaining statutory maternity pay up to the 5th of May in this case. And then parental pay is taken over after that. So from the 6th up until the end of the month, and at the standard rate, it's working out at $683.54 for the 3.7 weeks up to the pay date. Now, this employee, we don't have a company policy, so we're not going to pay them any salary because they've been on parental leave for the full month, but they are getting a combination of a statutory maternity and shared parental, and they've also seen a small tax refund as well. Now, unusually, there is more than one statutory payment for this period, but that's absolutely fine. They're not overlapping. One's taken over from the other. And if we have a quick look at the pre-update reports, And I'll just show you them for the 2 employees. Wrong option there, pre-update reports. The pay slips will display shared parental pay in the same way as other parental payments. So it has its own line. And you can see for this first employee, we've got the reduced salary based on the calculation that we did. And then for the other employee, they've got a total parental pay amount. But this is technically made up of 2 different parental payments. Some of it was the end of the maternity pay. The rest of it was the shared parental pay. But with it all being statutory pay, you get a total under this parental pay line. You'd also see the details in the parental payments column on your payment summary reports. So you can see parental payments are shown just here. And once you've printed all of your reports, you would then complete your payroll in the usual way and submit your FPS. So quick recap again then of processing SHPP. Once you've entered all the relevant details, it's just a case of setting your process date, checking you're happy with the shared parental pay amount. So you can see the breakdown in terms of weeks on the SSP parental leave tab. And then you'd make the necessary adjustments, either making up to basic, if your company does that, or manually reducing the salary amount. So we're just going to finish with reclaiming statutory payments. Now this works in the same way as any other statutory parental payment. So most employers would be allowed to reclaim 92% of the amount of statutory pay that they paid out. But if you happen to qualify for small employers relief, you do get 100% of the parental payment plus an additional 3% NI compensation. So small employers would get 103% reclaimed in total. You'd normally qualify for small employers relief if your total Class 1 national insurance was £45,000 or less in the tax year prior to the qualifying or matching week. It's something that we recommend that you check at the start of each tax year. And if you are eligible, you will need to select the eligible for small employers relief box in your company settings. Assuming you've already done that, once you've completed all of your pay runs for the month, you would then run your usual month-end reports, including the P32 report that calculates your payment due to HMRC. And you'll see itemised on that report any shared parental pay that you're able to recover, and as a small employer, any NI compensation on that SHPP. Now, because that reclaim isn't included in your FPS, you will need to do an EPS at the end of the tax month to report the values reclaimed. So you would do that through the employer payment summary option, choosing that you're adjusting your repayment because you have recovered statutory pay. So let's just finish off the demo by showing you those final steps. So first of all, that small employers relief setting can be found within company settings. I've already checked. My total NI for last year was under that £45,000 threshold. So I am eligible and I've already ticked this box. I need to complete my pay run for May. So I'm just going to go ahead and update the records and then send my FPS in the usual way. So this FPS only reports the liability based on tax, NI and student loan. So the total liability here does not include any amounts that I'm reclaiming. And once I've completed all pay runs for the tax month, and I just have the one in this example, I would do my P32 report. So I've got a handy link for that in the links section from the payroll links. Alternatively, you can go into reports, period end, and you've got your form P32, employer payment record. And if I run this for tax month 2, you can see that this month I've got a few statutory payments I'm reclaiming. So I've got the end of that maternity pay for the first employee. I've also got my shared parental pay recovered. And as a small employer, I'm getting the small employers relief as well. So the total I need to pay is significantly less than what was reported on the FPS. So I'm also claiming some employment allowance this month. So I would make this payment, but I need to report these values, the statutory payments recovered, by sending an EPS. So that can also be done from the payroll links. You've got the option to do your employer payment summary just here. Alternatively, go to e-submissions, employer payment summary. In this wizard, you choose the first option, that you're recovering statutory payments. It will display the tax month the submission relates to, and it will show the year-to-date values for the statutory payments you've reclaimed. So this maternity pay includes last month as well. It's a year-to-date submission, as well as the shared parental pay we've recovered. So we would complete this wizard through to the finish option. You can ignore the warning. This is just because I'm in the training room, but you then get your employer payment summary. So you would click continue and then submit. You would then send that through to HMRC, and they can then reduce the amount they're expecting on account of those values that you have now recovered. And if you ever need to look back at what you've submitted in an EPS, it is available in the e-submissions log. So it's the last submission I made. If I go into the details and then more details, you can see the reclaim amounts year to date are shown just here. So that is the month-end tasks. Very similar to, well, pretty much identical, I would say, to other statutory parental payments. And that actually brings us to the end of what we're going to cover in the webinar. So we have got some time left, so we will keep the webinar open for a while just to let you ask any of your final questions and to maybe read through any questions and answers from earlier in the session. If you do want to keep any of the Q&A, you will need to copy and paste into another document. You won't be able to download those, but you can download the slides. They are available from the handouts icon. So just to run through some of the further support available to you this month, we still have some remaining webinars scheduled. We have Get Your Payroll Done this Thursday at 2 p.m. So that's start to finish through a typical pay run process. We have a new session on variance reporting on Wednesday the 22nd, and another statutory payment at the end of the month, sick pay made simple, on the 30th of May. So you can find all of our upcoming webinars as well as recent recordings from our website, sage.co.uk/webinars, or you can follow the register now link if you're downloading the handout. Other useful support is available from our help center. Now this can be accessed in Sage 50 Payroll by clicking any of the help icons, or in your browser you can go to sage.co.uk/help and you can click through to Sage 50 Payroll. And from there, you can search the knowledge base, you can read support guides, you'll see a link to our webinars towards the top, and you'll find all the contact details for the support team should you need to get in touch. Another fantastic resource available to you is Sage University. So you can create a free profile at sageu.com. And once that's all set up, you can find your way to the Sage 50 Payroll learning path. And from there, you can take our e-learning courses, you can do the online certification, and we also have bite-sized learning modules that you can dip in and out of whenever you get the time. So a great way to brush up on your payroll skills. So do check it out at sageu.com. So as I say, we've got time left. We're going to spend the rest of the time just looking through and answering any of your final questions. Following the webinar, we will send you an email later on this afternoon with a link to the recording of this session. So if there's anything that you missed or that you'd like to review, feel free to watch that recording back or share it with your colleagues. And at the point you leave the webinar, you will be invited to take our post-webinar survey. So I'd really appreciate just a moment of your time if you wouldn't mind completing that survey to let us know what you thought of today's session. We do read all of your comments, and it does help us to improve all of our webinars moving forward. So I will shortly go on to mute, but I'll just take this opportunity to thank you for your time today, for anyone that will be leaving shortly. Stick around if you want to see any questions and answers. They will appear in the questions panel. And once we've got all of them answered, I will come back to wrap things up. So I will speak to you shortly. Hi again, everyone, and thank you so much for the questions that you sent through. We haven't had any new questions the last few minutes, and I think we've provided answers to the vast majority of them. So we're going to wrap things up there. Thanks once again, everyone, for joining us. If you wouldn't mind completing the survey when you leave the webinar or when we end it, I would very much appreciate your feedback. And look out for that follow-up email. It should be arriving in a few hours' time, and it contains the link to the recording as well as the link to see our upcoming webinars. But on behalf of myself and Ollie, thanks so much for joining us again, and we look forward to seeing you on some of our other webinars in the future. But goodbye for now.